displayed within these different windows that they need to be dealing with within the compliance environment at any one time. So by way of authentication and logging onto the system, the user will be provided with, as you can see on my screen here, a section where all of the tasks that they need to be aware of, that they need to be actioning in some way, will be displayed in this particular window. So you can see there I have a whole list of different tasks that I need to be dealing with, from complaints through to corrective actions through to actually doing some particular documentation. It just gives the user that window into the system so that they can very quickly navigate to those particular areas that need some work. Other things that we can have on this particular portal, you'll see here I have another view into the system of the different elements that we were talking about, specifically to do with accidents and incidents and securing your environment to make sure that you have documented all of the different ways that your employees are protected or have been trained, for example, to actually perform their roles within the organization. So on the windows at the bottom here, you can see I have a view of any OSHA reportable accidents that have occurred at this particular site. Also, I have a view of released assessments. Now, an assessment in terms of compliance could be a risk assessment, it could be a noise assessment for a particular working area, or it could just be some sort of general assessment to assess whether or not we need to do some specific scoring or make the area safer for those employees that are based within that area. Whenever a user comes into here, by a profile in the background where we set what type of documentation and the different areas of the business that they are responsible for or aligned to, the content of these windows will change. So when, for example, I've logged on here, I can see a couple of accidents and some risk assessments that refer to me. So if we take an example that I work in the dispatch area of the business, you will see here that I have a risk assessment that is to do with that particular area. So this is a document that I need to be aware of because it touches the job that I am performing on a regular basis. So if we open this document up directly from our navigator, just log in here. Okay, that will open up the document for me. And here we are straight into our risk assessment form where we can see all of the detail about the particular task and the job that I would be performing on a regular basis. So if we look at some of the general information at the top here, we have some controlling information, things like the date it was created, the release date, the latest revision of this document. This, the controls in the background of Fastworks ensure that your users, when they log on and see these documents, are always directed to the latest revision of a document in operation at that any one time. So you're guaranteed that they are actually working with the latest issue. If we look down here, we can immediately see what I need to be aware of, what the different steps of my job entails, the potential hazards, and the consequences that could arise if that particular task is performed incorrectly. We have some traffic lighting on here, we have some scoring on here, all of which are totally configurable, and you mentioned the configuration side to Fastworks earlier, and we have many different ways of scoring individual hazards. But this gives me an overview that this particular task that I'm performing has a medium overall risk rating. And for each of those different tasks, these are the things that I should be doing when I'm performing that particular task. What we can also do is we can, you'll see these tabs here on this particular form, we click onto the next section for our risk details. We can have specific PPE, preventive equipment that your people need to wear when they're performing that particular task. So you're giving them information again there of the safety element of performing that particular role. We come back out of this document here, it will take us back to our navigator. Some of the other things that we can look at here is we have a section for employee records and their training records. So if the unfortunate happens and an incident occurs and one of your employees is injured, it becomes quite easy to track whether that particular person had any training on the machinery that they were operating, if they had training on the policy and the procedure for performing that particular task. You can link all of those different types of documentation together within the Fastworks system. And they can, the starting point for those could be the employee record. When an employee is allocated into the Fastworks system, they are allocated to a job role. And a job role has specific required training that is required for them to be fully competent in performing that job role. So for example here, for our dispatcher job role, if we go and open that from our portal window, we can see any job description that may be in here, any attachments, maybe a full workflow for that particular job role. But on the required training tab, we can see the different types of required training that are required to be fully competent in that job role. In this case, we need 2 different types of training to be competent. Okay, so we can look at job roles. We can also go down to employee level, which I haven't got on my portal window, but I'll show you one of the ways of getting into there. We can go via our IMS tab. So if we go to our Integrated Management System tab, which is at the core of Fastworks, you'll see we have many different elements of compliance models across the top here. We have our training area. So let's drop into the training area. Okay, we can look at the listing of jobs, just like we were doing in that window on the portal just before. So there's our dispatch job. But what we can also look at is we can look at any of our employee information as well. So I know, because I set this up before, that Jane also works in the dispatch area. And you'll see here that there's Jane's record, that she is allocated to that particular job role. We can look at what required training Jane needs, and you'll notice there that she actually still has 1 element of required training remaining. If we look at her completed training tab, we can see that actually she has been trained on the operating policies within the dispatch area. You'll see the dates that she went on that training, and you will also see the date that any management review to make sure that that training was effective takes place. We can record the comments of that effectiveness, so maybe Jane didn't quite pick up the details of those particular policies, maybe she needs some further training, or maybe she's happy with what she was taught on that particular training course, and we can record all of that in our effectiveness review. But by linking all of these documentation elements together, by using these links that you can see here, we can navigate backwards and forwards. If Jane was to be injured, unfortunately, during an accident, when operating a particular piece of machinery in the dispatch area, we can go back through and navigate through all the exact history of what training Jane has received. So was she trained on that equipment? Did she actually acknowledge the fact that she was happy with the policies for that particular area? Was she aware of the risk assessment and the preventive equipment that she should be using whilst operating that particular piece of machinery? It gives you and your organizations the history and the flow of information to secure yourselves against any sort of legal claims that may be made by those employees or the injured parties. And that's the same, we just touched on accidents and incidents there for health and safety, but that type of linking is the same for a customer complaint, an environmental incident, and you've talked before, you know, maybe you've had an emission from your plant, or maybe you've had a spillage, or contamination of the water course, for example. All of those things that are recorded within the compliance system can all be linked together and are fully traced throughout the whole history trail. Finally, obviously we put good information into the system. It's nice to get that information out into some sort of format. Fastworks comes with a full reporting module, which uses currently Microsoft Excel as its reporting engine in the background. All of the processing and extraction of data is done at client level, so it's much quicker. You're not relying on the server that the software is sat on to actually feed that information back to you. For example, here I have a report that I created that will show me all of the accidents that have currently been logged in 2011. But you'll see there in that list just an example of the types of reports that you can extract automatically, so on a scheduled basis, or manually by the system. On the scheduled basis, you can set these reports to run at specific time periods. So you may have an end-of-month report that would show you all the lost time accidents, all of the outstanding accidents where employees are on restricted work duties, for example. You can set those to run on the last day of every month, and then the next morning when you come in, you will have an email with a link directly to that report in the Fastworks system. So let's look at this report. We'll go and run this report, and you'll see the extraction of the data that it will bring through. Basically, for a report, you will define the type of information you want to bring out. If I just run this report, it will then allow me to extract the data into my Excel spreadsheet, but it will also allow you to extend the use of that by adding on additional elements to the data that is extracted. So, for example, you should be seeing the data on the screen as it's being extracted from the accident module. You'll notice that in column J on my report, I have a document linking field, which is just a hotspot. But what that will actually do from the Excel spreadsheet, it will take me directly to that particular record within Fastworks. What you will also see when this report has finished running, there's not that many on here so it shouldn't take too long, you will actually see a series of macros being run in the background, which are just simple add-ons to the report, which will allow me to create, in this case, a pivot table and a pivot chart. So you'll see that formatting and producing the report for me. So now very quickly, from all of my accidents that were logged in Fastworks, by the type of accident, it's given us breakdown by the different site, the number of each type of accident that was recorded currently in 2011. So here we can see that currently we've had 52 accidents, 9 of which have been slip, trips and falls. And it's also produced a very simple chart. Obviously you can get as extravagant as you like on those charts if you know Excel well, but it's given me a simple chart showing me the main categories of accident. And that's all simply by using Excel and a series of macros from the reports module. Okay, let's go back into our Fastworks system. So what we've looked at there is we've gone through from an overview of when a user would log into the system, of the information, the type of information that they may be presented with, right through to the traceability of documentation, traceability of employee training records, what's outstanding, what they've currently received training on, their acknowledgement that they're happy with the training that they've received, so that you have this whole history flow with the data in your organization. Okay, and Dawn, that's probably all I was going to just demonstrate today, rather than go too in-depth on some of the modules. So I guess we'll pass back to you and see if we have any questions.
And that concludes this edition of Group Talk. Thanks for watching. To engage in conversations with us, visit twitter.com/gbsknows. To stay up to date, like us on Facebook at facebook.com/joingbs. And to watch entertaining and informative videos, visit youtube.com/gbsknows. And don't forget, visit our website and send us an email at gbs.com and info@gbs.com. Thanks again.